stand stable. I feel able to turn the tables. I could do this. Just keep moving, keep your hands up, stupid. I feel lucid, a new viewing. I can see the end, I can see my future, I can view it. It's right there for the taking. Everything I've ever wanted, dreams are just waiting. I just gotta fight for it, willing to die for it, willing to like sort of.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to The Drunken Turkey Show, your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
You guys know what to do, just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT Show. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell, guys. You guys know what to do. Today, we're going to be going back into the Jack and Lily Sullivan disappearance. I have a special guest that's going to be joining me. She's been covering the case for such a long time, since it's happened, actually, and has a wealth of information when it comes to the disappearance. And well, without further ado, let's bring her on. Let's bring on Sunny from It's a Criming Shame. How's it going, Sunny?
Good. Thanks for having me. Love you, buddy.
Welcome. You're welcome. It's good to see you again. It's been a little bit weird, not necessarily weird, but a little bit roller coaster-ish when it comes to the Jack and Lily disappearance. Some things will come out, some things will die down, and back and forth and back and forth. How have you been able to keep up with all the information?
Honestly, just by if I'm not doing it live, then I'm always watching or looking at posts on different things. Lately, obviously, the documents. If you don't keep up with it, it really can lose you. So for sure. Yeah,
no, I agree. And here recently, the documents have just been released to me. I got them, and then I noticed that you also had them probably before I did. It seemed like you were going live with them even before I got them. How long have you had the RCMP documents?
Honestly, Daniel, so I got them the same day we went live. Mm-hmm. I was sent them by Belinda a couple hours before, because we had been wanting those documents, right? So we had been reaching out. I'd try to get those documents. And then I was at work, and then I didn't see the message. And then I realized that you had the documents as well when you were on doing your live. And I was like, because I quickly took a peek over and I seen that you had them. So I got them a couple hours before that live, if not an hour and a half. Yeah. Right, Belinda.
Significant amount of documents. It was interesting. Yeah. Up until that point, I had some form of documents, but I'll be honest, it was so hard to read. I was struggling, and it was because it was mainly like some screenshots and stuff. But a little bit after you went live, or around the time you were going live, I ended up getting the clear version, and it's quite a bit of it is repetitive, isn't it?
Yes, because when I was going over them myself, I'm not into because it reminded me of Delphi. Whenever we got the documents, it was usually another document added to it. And that's kind of a lot what it was, whether it was about the phones, whether it was about the Cobaquid, I think it's called, pass, and it was just some documents, a little bit more information in some of them, but most of it was just a lot of repetitiveness and redactions.
Yeah, a lot of redactions in it. Yeah. I have my thoughts on what the redactions are. Me personally, I think the redactions are going to be statements about or from people who are maybe a third party to the situation. Those that aren't Malaya, Daniel, Janie. If they talk to a neighbor, but even at that, I think I saw some names from some neighbors. But some of the things that they were saying, that was private information, and then I felt that some of the redacted stuff was unfounded information. Not necessarily doesn't mean that it's not true or it's false, or it is true. It's just that there's no evidence of, and one of my conversations, with that was with Daniel. I actually spoke with him, and he told me that some of the stuff that was redacted were the thoughts that he had about Malaya. Now, me personally, I believe that the documents clear them. I know you don't think so, and we'll kind of go into that here in a little bit. But and I've told this to Daniel, I was like, just as much as it says that you've cooperated and you passed your polygraph and they don't believe you did anything, it says the same thing for her.
Right.
And so with that being said, I just kind of felt that the stuff that he was saying and them believing that she's not, something responsible or involved. Maybe perhaps if there's some can argue neglect, some can argue some other things. Maybe perhaps you have a point,
Right.
But actually harming the children and committing the ultimate crime and disposing of the body or something of that nature doesn't seem likely when it comes to what the documents say. And I think that also kind of also mentions the disappearance aspect of it. What was your take on that aspect? I know you look at it a little bit different than I do.
Yeah, and sorry, Daniel. Which aspect of it? The one about
aspect, the fact that them saying that there's no grounds to.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There's no grounds for criminal offense. There's no criminal activity, and that the intent of the polygraph and the information that they collected was to rule that out.
So, what I want to say is, okay, I remember seeing this stupid redactment when it said that Malaya went into Tim Hortons and got a redacted. Okay, just put coffee or donut, whatever. Yeah. But they literally redacted the item that was purchased. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, how silly is that? Like, seriously.
That's pretty silly. Yeah. I didn't realize that. I didn't see that part. That's funny.
The thing is of course, whenever I go into anything, right, I just really want to look at what's being put out there, look at the facts of what's coming out and stuff like that. So it's not like, of course, I go into the intent of going, oh, let's blame the family, and stuff like that. No. To me, no matter how we slice or dice this myself, regardless of innocence or guilt on anyone's part, whenever something is out of character and the case follows this path of what I deem as not normalcy, and it just, you're in your gut when you just kind of start hearing inconsistencies on and on. It's weird. Okay, I'll put it that way. This case is absolutely, for Canada, United States, that this is not weird. For Canada, this case is weird, because in the United States there are a dime a dozen these type of cases, in a sense, but here it's not. And so to watch how it's flowed, right? Like me and Charmaine went into this with the fact of thinking that Malaya's interview was absolutely strange, but that Daniel was showing what you would deem as someone that's kind of following protocol of, going to the news, of what you would expect. Then the conversation came along with Charmaine and Daniel. And that's where things, I remember, took a twist. And I remember Charmaine going, this guy's effing with me. And he's lying. And I know he is, type of thing. And I still wasn't quite there yet, right? But as time just was going on, the inconsistencies. Well,
let's break those inconsistencies down before we get into the who cleared who or whatever. What are the major inconsistencies that you have an issue with?
I would say that the biggest one of the biggest ones is the fact that Malaya messaged Belinda, and as well as it's in an article, that from 8 to 8:30 is when the children were last seen, and that meant during that time that Lily had come into the room as well, and that. So for me, for Daniel, right, they've never cleared that part up at all. And yet it's on the scanner radio, and obviously and it was on it twice, and that information came from them. So I would like for them, right, because this is the children that were on that property. If they're appealing for help, then be straightforward and honest.
But doesn't that make a little bit of sense if they heard or saw the children at around 8:30? If Janie is hearing them outside at 8:48 or a little bit after that, it kind of flows with that. Would make sense? That would be around the time that if they did get out and go play outside, that would have been around the time that they would have. Give or take a few minutes. I don't think it'd be feasible to expect 100% accuracy. I mean, we don't even get 100% accuracy on some of these surveillance tapes. We'll see a surveillance tape that says one time and then another surveillance tape that's capturing the same thing, and it's off by 4 or 5 minutes. And so, wouldn't that be around that time when they hear or if the kids got out that morning and Janie's hearing them at about 9 o'clock?
So the thing with that is, at the end of the day, all they simply had to do, Daniel's especially because he's the one that's doing the talking, just simply clear it up about where that 8 to 8:30 came from. But the fact is that whole 8:30 revolved around him saying that it was only a few minutes after, and that he got up because he didn't hear Jack and Lily in the kitchen. So in saying that, it's the fact that was never ever cleared up and said, you know what, we had our times wrong, we had them off when we told them that, like it was just a matter of just, you know what, you've been asked this question multiple times, Daniel, why don't you just simply clear it up? And it always seemed to be games. He never seemed to want to answer certain questions, but it was the fact that they revolved the time based on the 8 to 8:30 comment, which would have put them more at about 8:50. Like, and right now, Janie's time is after 9 o'clock when she's talking about it. But the thing is that Daniel's story started revolving, and Darren started revolving around Malaya doing something. Well, hold on. He started off with Cindy. But the thing is that time frame could not make sense because the inconsistency between the stories about going up into the woods, seeing Malaya on the phone, that Malaya was on the phone already calling, and all these different things. Like, we're talking just because there has been such multiple inconsistencies by Daniel himself. Okay. And then
but I think law enforcement picked up on some of the problems that he was having, and they even go into it, and in the document, it reads there that, where he goes, I'm trying to be truthful. And they say, hey, well, you said you went to the store on this day and it was ended up being that day. There wasn't anything nefarious behind it. In fact, it proved that once they were able to determine, because if they went and looked at the camera on the day that he said they went, well, they weren't going to be on there because they weren't there that day. The fact that they were able to go and look at their bank statements and stuff so that they can not just, and I think that they had an understanding here that these guys probably slept all day. So their accuracy on their times in the morning, maybe not all day, let me rephrase that, all morning. Their times in that morning are probably going to be inaccurate because they were in and out of sleep. I mean, we look at, for instance,
so clear it up.
Well, how does he clear it up? I mean, he can't go in the past and say, all right, I actually woke up at this time and this and that. I mean, it's kind of like with Dylan and Bethany in the Idaho case where, a lot of things that they're saying was like, well, between 4 and 4:20, because the only thing that they know for reference of time was the fact that they woke up at a certain time, and they may have looked at their phone at that time. And then at 4:20 is when Dylan calls Bethany. But outside of that, everything in between that time, it's been a little bit up and down. Like, oh, I heard this, I may have heard that first and this second. And they were going through something traumatic and super stressful and things of that nature as well. Yeah. And so, going back here, if he's waking up at 8:45, and if you look, we go through here and he goes in and says, all right, here's my phone, here's my banks, here's my bank account, here's a 4-hour statement that he's going back and forth with law enforcement, clearing up those things and clearing up the accuracy of the timeline. I mean, he may not be going to you and I and right, trying to re-explain this over and over again, when clearly it seems like even law enforcement have acknowledged by putting it into this document that he has a little bit of a problem explaining himself. And that doesn't necessarily mean that he did something nefarious. It just probably means he's under a lot of stress, and he's under a lot of, it could be a lot of things. I'm not a doctor. I don't want to go down any other routes or any of those things, but it seems like they had a trouble with his explaining, and which is why they went through so much to not necessarily clear him, doing a 4-hour interview with him, checking his phone, doing a polygraph, doing all those things aren't typically something you do to somebody that you suspect is innocent. That's something you do to somebody you suspect may have some involvement.
I get it.
And yet they didn't find a thing.
I get it. I do. And I just want to point out, because Belinda said something above there. I just saw.
Okay.
Belinda said that. So Malaya had told Belinda that she had last saw the kids on Thursday night.
Okay.
Now, so again, that's Malaya never said anything different about that. And then all of a sudden, on like the next days, we see it in the documents, okay, in the police. But
it's not uncommon for people to remember things as days pass.
Okay, so I mean, like I said, I'll make myself very clear on my position here, because again, this isn't 1, this isn't 10. We are talking about 50 at least inconsistencies with what I've watched Daniel do from the start to now. It is ridiculous for me personally to watch what's going on. Now, either he's to me the biggest narcissist ever in the world, and he just doesn't know how to tell the truth. Now, I also do know, and I'm just going to say it, okay, because it's factual, Daniel. Okay, you do math, buddy. Okay, it's been stated by not only Malaya but family members as well. Okay, now we were told
whose family members?
Pardon?
Whose family members?
Well, Malaya, and the second one I'm not going to say.
Is it his family members or Malaya's family members?
Not going to say. But I'm not going to say on that one. Not here. I'll
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious because, I mean, if it's Malaya's family members, I'm aware that Malaya was saying some things. And it even kind of talks about this in the documents that, you know, they at one point they lived at Malaya's grandmother's house. And that they moved from there, and it seemed like, and talking with Malaya's relatives as well, that the sense that I kind of got was that she was probably going to leave him, and she was coming up with all these things to tell everybody, so that way she wouldn't be questioned. And I think she was a little bit torn by whether or not to leave him or not. And so she was like, you know, that's why she was telling him things, giving him hints, telling him these things. I don't know necessarily how true the things that she was telling, or if they were half truth or exaggerated truths or full truths. I mean, for all I know, she could have been saying 100% the truth there. Now, what I do know is whatever she told law enforcement was truthful, because she passed the lie detector test. And it doesn't seem that she is, at least to law enforcement, has stated that Daniel has done anything physical to the kids. I mean, I think it said the opposite of that. And so, you know, and as far as the drug use, I mean, you know, do you think he? All right. Well, they got his banking records, so let's look at the drug use first. Do you think he was making it, or do you think he was buying it?
No, I know he was purchasing it.
Okay. Well, how do you know he was purchasing it?
Family member.
And how was he purchasing it? With what?
Oh, as in like what? Cash?
Yeah. Where do you get the money from? It doesn't sound like he was working very much.
Maybe Patty. I don't know.
So somebody else was buying him drugs.
Well, not that somebody else was, but who knows?
And law enforcement couldn't figure it out based on his text messages, his phone calls.
They obviously know, right? They obviously know.
Well, if they obviously know, then he wouldn't be cleared. That's the thing. If there was something that indicated that he was somewhat involved in this, they wouldn't be coming out and saying there's no evidence or grounds to believe that a criminal offense occurred.
But the thing is that just because, and it's like, whoops, one sec, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, that's my thing.
No, I understand. I know what it is.
Okay. But the bottom line is, just because he does it doesn't make him a killer, right?
Right. That's the other thing too. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there, you know, with that type of accusation, there's a lot of things that can happen. The kids could get into it, then you could have something there. But then if that were to have happened, I strongly doubt that they still would have passed the lie detector test. Now, you know, when it comes to false tests in the lie detector world, it is more common that a person be truthful and it come out negative than somebody be lying and it come out that they were being truthful. That's a tremendous thing to do. And for two of them to do it, I mean, that would be impressive. And it's not even with it's with two different investigators and two different machines. So, and not only that, you have to add on the other 4 people that did it, which I think 2 people were, I think Cody and somebody else, but then it was her parents too. And so to me, it would be, it's a little bit outlandish. I mean, it's not like they were preparing themselves either to pass a lie detector test prior to this. And it sounds like within a week of the disappearance is when they're asking them to take one. That's not a lot of time to prepare to pass one. You know what I'm saying? I think you're on muted. You're on mute. And then also, they had their phones and their searches and all that other stuff. So where's the history for how to pass a lie detector test?
Narcissist.
Well, I mean, Malaya too.
Go off one more time,
Malaya, yeah, but Malaya also, she passed it. And then the other thing is too, you have 3 persons that heard or saw something that morning. You have Janie, you have Daniel, and you have Malaya. And so if for me, if one of them, if something happened, they all have to be involved because they all corroborate each other.
Sorry that my music was going off there. Thanks,
Okay.
Alexa. Okay, sorry. What was the last thing you said there, Daniel?
What I was saying is that, you can call him a narcissist and say that's how he passed, but that doesn't, how does that make Malaya pass? How does she overcome the fact that she also heard the kids that morning? And Janie as well, who also heard the kids, because at the end, if something nefarious occurred, and somebody did something, or not even nefarious, if there was an accident or something and somebody did something, they all know about it and they all have to be involved because they all corroborate each other in one way or another.
You know what? Honestly, for this case, that I guess would be the Cadbury secret, because this case doesn't make sense. Doesn't mean that Daniel and Malaya and Janie or whatever are guilty of doing something to Jack and Lily. No. Do I think that that Malaya, her actions, she's mostly about actions, because obviously Daniel's been doing the talking, right? So hers is like very nominal in information.
I agree.
So it's easy to keep talking about Daniel, obviously, because of him being in and out of chats and things and stuff like that. Now, in saying that, okay, I guess we look, again, it goes down to me this when I'm looking at it myself. And this is just my own speculation, okay? Doesn't make it true. Of course. It's just what I'm seeing. For my gut to be so far off, it just doesn't happen. But
well, what is your gut saying? What do you think happened?
My gut's saying that something happened. It was a cover-up, and that something happened to the children on the property. That's what my gut is saying, and that's what it's telling me. Why is it doing that? Well, because of what I'm witnessing happen. It's not normal. A mother leaves the property.
Well, let's break it down first. Yeah. So what do you think could have happened? Like something physical and a drug? What do you think may have occurred on the property? Because they did search the house. They searched the place. And from what I have read about the searches of the place, it didn't seem like they cleaned up anything.
Maybe not. And that's too bad. It's too bad. Honestly, I just want to say that it's too bad that they didn't cordon it off the area and go back and then downgrade according to information, unfortunately, for that. But anyways, so I'm sorry. You know what? I'm not even going to lie. Brain fart. What did you just ask me?
I asked, what do you think, like, what happened to them? You say your gut is telling you that something happened. Like there was a search of the house. It didn't seem like it was cleaned up. They brought in dogs. They searched the under part of the house. They searched the inside. They completely tore it apart. They brought dogs in.
Not in the trailer.
Well, maybe not inside of the trailer, but it seemed like they went around the area. But they did. Law enforcement entered the trailer.
So I guess it becomes like this. So Malaya had said, and a family member, that Malaya woke up around 12 o'clock. And this is by 2 different people. That Malaya woke up. And this is according to, of course, Malaya, right? So it's not like we can take Malaya and believe all her truth versus Daniel's, right? We have to look at it what fairly as we can with what Malaya's put out there. But anyways, that Malaya woke up, Daniel was doing meth, and he was tweaking all night, basically, or whatever, all night.
Okay.
So is that true? Now, so my thing would be this: if I was to think of what possible scenarios could have happened, my first one would always be that the children accidentally got perhaps into the drugs, and so if it happened at home, that would be my scenario. The second scenario to happening at home would be that there was an argument, like I've heard multiple times, that there was an argument, that it escalated, that Daniel and Malaya kind of slapped each other. And then the kids got involved, and that one got hurt and ended up being a fatal blow. And basically that the other one life was taken because they would be whatever and CPS. Now, I usually don't go to that type of thing myself, because that does, like, my thing in my head is as a parent. So let's say an accident happened and that a child was hit, knocked out of the way, and a fatal blow happened.
Okay.
I personally have a hard time myself believing that a second child would be taken, because other child saw what happened. That's to the extreme side for me. That's why I tend to go more with the fact that perhaps that the children got into the meth or the math. Sorry, I say meth on my channel, but I never get like a yellow. But anyways, so bottom line is that's pretty much the two scenarios that I would go with. But we'll call it the drug one being the main, if I was. Now, because of the actions all involved is what heightens that for me. It's not because I want to pick on Daniel or pick on Malaya. It's been the actions of what we normally see with these cases.
Well, hold on. Before we move forward from the drug stuff, let's stay there. When you're on that type of drug, it's a lot harder to sleep, for one.
Right.
And so he would have had to have been probably awake all day, all night. They would have been lying about him being asleep. Janie would have been implemented. So would have Malaya. And if this was all the case, I struggle to believe that, while somebody high on meth is just going to leave their phone there. Now, I know he left his phone there when he went to go search for Lily and Jack, but that was a situation where he was woken up, kids were gone, he split up, he went out the door and went looking for him. And so he didn't go and grab all the things he probably needed to. I know he left and then came back, got dressed, and then left. There's probably a lot of things that was going on through his mind, maybe forgetting certain things like that. But meth would have kept you up all night. Yep. I strongly believe that there would have been some sort of indication on his phone that he turned over with the geolocations on the phone that says, all right, at this time, you said you were asleep all night, but why does this say that you were moving?
What about his burner phones, though? What about those? Tell me about those.
What burner phones?
The burner phones that he had.
I'm not aware of any burner phones. What burner phones?
So I am aware of that. We'll use the word allegedly because it's not coming out of Daniel's mouth, right? And it's not coming out of Malaya's mouth, right? But it's coming out
of whose mouth? Because anybody can just say, oh, he must have had a burner phone. What evidence of a burner phone was there?
Okay, so I'll say allegedly.
Okay.
But it's from family. But allegedly, we'll say. Okay. So it's kind of like in my head, I just have all that information. But tell me, Daniel.
Well, hold on. The service isn't good there, right? They have to have a router and a Wi-Fi to use for calls and text messages. Well, it'd be very easy easy to determine if he had a burner phone if you were law enforcement. It's not very difficult to determine that. All you'd have to do is figure out what phones are connecting to that router during that time, and bada boom, bada beam. It's not hard. And if they were investigating this guy as hard as it appeared they were, because like I said, they took his banking records, they took his phone records, they took the router information from the thing. They took all that stuff. So this stuff that you're claiming is really, really easy to determine whether or not if it's fact or not. Now, you and I can't determine that because we're not in the investigation, but law enforcement can determine if those things are are accurate. And I can guarantee you'll be looking at this guy with a freaking magnifying glass the size of the Hubble space station if you found out that this guy had extra phones and didn't turn those in.
It's not like this hasn't been reported to the RCMP. Okay, everything that I'm saying,
right? I mean, reported, and that's even more things. So they're aware of it, and yet they haven't found any evidence of it, which leads me to believe that it's probably inaccurate. I mean, maybe there's some other phones that were there at some point. Maybe there were phones from the past. I'm not saying that it's completely false, but those things are so simple to figure out.
I was going to say, like the first thing always in my head, Daniel, is that the police are not dumb. Okay? Right. They're smart. I know that they have this information regardless when it's told, obviously, right? Especially when it's coming from family members, right? You would think that there's family members out there, regardless, that want answers for Jack and Lily, right? There are family members that don't believe in Daniel or Malaya. But the bottom line is that RCMP, I believe that they are absolutely on it. That, maybe I do question why they were at the sawmill the other day, right?
Oh, I heard that was false.
No, it wasn't false.
I've talked to about 4 people that
okay.
It wasn't.
Well, we'll leave that one alone.
Yeah.
Only because I heard differently, but not because of Kent, but because of.
Source. Oh no, I called some other folks.
Yeah.
And even Kent told me. I asked him about it, and he told me that he wasn't sure if it was true.
No.
Or not.
Well, that one, right? He didn't know because that was a random person messaging to him, and then I was told that they said it was unrelated to Jack and Lily, but then, yeah. So
yeah, and so I mean, if there was somebody there, it wasn't related to them, and so there's been a lot of things that have been kind of weird, like that not Jack in the wrong case. I know. That Daniel or Janie got arrested. That bodies were found on their property. What do you think about that type of content that's put out there? Because it's obviously false.
I think it's disgusting. First and foremost, I do because, like I said, sure, I love the facts of everything and then speculation. And if facts are wrong, you want to put out the right information. If it's got receipts to back it up, yes. But other than that, when people start creating AI videos and putting what I call really disgusting content out there, claiming that bodies were found on their property, or Daniel was arrested and stuff like that, that just, you can't stop it. Because this is only the beginning of AI stuff.
Yeah.
So I hate to see what it's going to be like. But for me personally, I think it's disgusting. But by the same token, it makes people click and learn about the case, even if it's not the right information. See, because the bottom line is all these people that are watching these videos aren't going to be solving the case typically, right? Yeah. They're going to be following it, learning about the case. You're going to come to realize that, oh, wait, I'm confused. This is this and this is this. At the end of the day, you just want whoever knows the truth of what happened to Jack and Lily to come forward and bring answers and keep the awareness out there. So even though those are disgusting, at the end of the day, those type of videos, the AI ones like that, again, those people that are watching that aren't going to be solving the case.
No, they're not. But I mean, that's detrimental to the family members. And especially if they had nothing to do with, if they weren't involved because like I said, I don't know. And I'm not going to, defending Daniel, Janie, or Malaya isn't a hill that I'm willing to die on. Right, what I'd follow isn't what they tell me. Because like I said, they've told me that they think Malaya had something to do with it. I've heard that from not just them, but from a few people that, Malaya's hiding the kids and this, that, and the third. I don't buy that. And what I follow is law enforcement. And what I follow is the investigation. What is typical in an investigation? When somebody says something or an accusation is done, like what you just said right now about the potential of a burner phone. All right. Is there a way to prove that they had a burner phone? There's a significant amount of ways of proving they had a burner phone or not. You go through their financial records because they would have had to have purchased it at some point. You go through the financial records because they have to put minutes or whatever. And if they're not putting minutes and they're utilizing their Wi-Fi or their cell phones or their hotspot or any of those things, well, that's going to populate on their phone. I mean, there is on their phone for the hotspot or the router for the Wi-Fi. So either way, there are a number of ways to figure out how to go down those avenues. And for me, when I look at this case, I look at it from that perspective. Like, all right, if I was in law enforcement and this was the accusation, and I was in law enforcement on the case, and this was the accusation that is going on, how could I prove one way or another if the accusation has any merit or not? And, you know, I look at, and when we first talked, this was before the documents came, and I was like, hey, well, if they got their phones, they got this. If they got this, they got that. And sure enough, almost everything that I was pointing out came out in those documents as something that they looked into to try to eliminate. And I understand, you know, why they look at it. You know, they're looking at the bank records. You know, it's not just looking at it to see if somebody dropped in a tremendous amount of money. You're looking at it to see if there's any withdrawals or deposits that are abnormal. You look at it to see if you have a chunk change coming in and out, because at the end of the day, when you look at his financial records, you're also going to try to see if his incoming and his outgoing are matching. And you're going to look at his purchase receipts. You're going to try to, when you search the house, you're going to look for receipts. You're going to try to find receipts to see if those things match up with if he's paying things with cash. I mean, there's just so many things that you can do to try to determine whether or not somebody is highly involved in drugs or if they're not. And those type of crimes that result in like loss of life aren't typically crimes that were premeditated. Those are like something crazy happened, or an accident happened, or an overdose happened. And usually, because they're not premeditated, because they're not pre-planned, there's a lot of evidence there of those type of things. And I just I know that's what I follow.
I get it. Now, and don't get me wrong, I get it. And like someone said in chat, I think it was Ben. Hey guys, like I said, I love listening to other people's point of views.
Yeah,
because I'm not stuck on my own now. And by the way, it's called Bank Patty. Okay, I just asked Malay. It's called Bank Patty.
Bank Patty.
Bank Patty.
Okay.
Bank Patty. That's what we call it on there. So like I said, I am not set on stone on anything, right?
Yeah.
And no matter what, so regardless, Daniel, there's no trust anymore with that. Because he burnt that with me personally. And that's because he was given so many opportunities, right? I could go on and on about, the inconsistencies with Daniel, but at the end of the day, it actually gets rather boring after a while because there's just so many. And at the end of the day, again, if he's involved, then karma will be there for him. Same with Malaya, same with anyone else.
I agree.
Let me go back to you though, okay? Because my thing is this, is that RCMP have made a very, constantly make the claim that there is no abduction that happened to these kids, okay? There's no stranger abduction that happened to these kids. They've been very clear about that. There's nothing. So let me ask you, where are you at again with your thoughts? I know you're talking about a neighbor. I know you thought perhaps they walked. I know you still want to talk about the pink blanket, I believe, as well.
Yeah. So with the RCMP, I didn't see them say that they don't believe there was an abduction. What I see them say is that they don't believe a criminal offense or criminal crime had occurred when it came to Malaya and Daniel. Those were the two that were polygraphed. Those were the two that were extensively and exhaustively searched into. And so when it reads that, it's reading about what they were trying to do, which was eliminate them as suspects, which is exactly what it says in there.
That's what it says in the papers.
That doesn't mean that that if they're eliminated, that all persons are eliminated. I don't see meaning that there was no abduction. I never saw that in the documents of theirs. I'm not sure if they might say there's no evidence of abduction as well. With that one, I don't know. I mean, they talked about a tip in there that said that there was a person who somebody saw some kids walking towards a lady.
Yeah.
That's iffy. I don't know if it's valid or not. Eyewitness testimony are typically not the strongest. And even if they saw somebody out there, I mean, that could have been somebody's grandma with their grandkids just pulling over to the side to see something or whatever the case may be, and then getting back in the car. It could be, and then it also could be 100% that. But to me, when it comes to the investigation aspect, When you look at the possibilities of this crime, of this case, and what the possibilities of the crimes that may have been committed, you're looking at, most likely, let's just say if the parents, and this is what I at this point believe that in law, I believe what law enforcement are saying here, and that the parents aren't involved. And so what I think most likely happened then is, if this was a crime offense, then we got to look for, they got to pass a couple of things, right? The things that they need to pass is, well, they geofenced. I'm assuming they did that. They geofenced the towers, and some of the things are redacted, and it sounds like they did that when they're getting information from Halifax and all these other places. It could be banking, it could be phone, it could be the towers. I don't know, and I'm not sure if this is everything, or if this only encompasses the search and the family member investigation. But my first thing that I would have done if I was investigating this case, is I would have gone and gotten all of the phone numbers that were attached to the phone record, the cell phone towers. Now, you're going to look for people who shouldn't be there, and people that don't live in the area, and you start to circle them off, right? Now, it's going to be kind of hard to determine which vehicles or which phone numbers are going to be specifically to that area, because the cell service is kind of spotty. And so you're going to have a margin of error that's going to be probably miles wide. And so you're going to have to investigate quite a few vehicles that are in that area. But that's the first thing that I would do once you've ruled out the parents. And then secondly, once you've done that and you start going through that, you kind of have to look into if the folks that didn't belong in that area, whether they were driving through or whatever the case may have been, once they get ruled out, then you got to look at the people that are in the area that do belong. And that's going to make the case very difficult, because as I said, you're probably looking at miles of margin of error when it comes to cell service. And I know some people are going to say, well, what about Daniel and Alea? They gave their, their phones and things of that nature, and you're looking at their tracking as being more accurate, and that's 100% accurate because they have turned over their phones. Inside of the phone is a GPS chip, and once they have the phone, they can get warrants and things of that nature to get GPS location on the phone, which is accurate by feet, meters, and call advanced timing records in that area. The way it sounds as far as how spotty cell service is not going to be very accurate. And so if somebody committed this crime, to me, the reason why I believe that if there was something nefarious, it had to be somebody close, because somebody from outside of that area would have stuck out like a sore thumb. And again, this seems like a crime of opportunity if it happened. So not premeditated, not planned, most likely didn't have their phones off, those type of things. Most likely saw the kids either in the backyard or wandering off in the street. Now, so you'd have to find somebody that's in the area, somebody that lives there, because it would be hard to determine whether they were at home, whether they're at Daniel's house, or a mile or two away in that area. And so that's why I'm not 100% on the neighbor, which is why I've not named the neighbor. The neighbor is suspicious. So they have quite a few arrests that I've been able to pull up on news articles from where they've been arrested for various things: theft, controlled substances, and assault, I believe, were the three that I have seen. And when you have those kind of things, and you have that person that lives in the area, so if you have a thief that's high on something, that has the possibility of being violent in the area, those three things can, you can see how those things can equal out to something nefarious there. Somebody can go into somebody's yard. Maybe that's why something's missing out of the trash. If you're a thief and you're trying to pay for your habit, because that's usually what they're stealing for, especially if they have a problem with controlled substances. If that ends up being the case and you go on somebody's yard, you might see some kids, you're under the influence, your mind's not in the right place already. I mean, a lot of things can happen, and you can slide through the cracks from that because, well, one, if they go and check your phone, you only live 500 yards away or 1,000 yards away. It's going to be indistinguishable whether you are at Daniel's house, your house, or a mile down, in a million directions. And so those are the reasons why I believe that there's a possibility. Me personally, just kind of like what you said earlier, 8:30 is when they heard him. 8:45, I believe, 8:48 is when Janie gets the phone call. My assumption is before 9 o'clock, they're outside and they're gone. I got a picture of a bear, a pretty large bear.
I saw that.
From the area during that time. The bear didn't have to take them from there. The bear didn't have to take them at all. The kids could have wandered off, gone down the street, been over there by the pipeline, just wandering over there, and then a bear appear, and then they get scared and go off into the tree line. Could have happened at another point. A number of different places where an interaction could have occurred. They could have gotten scared. They could have been taken. If they come across, cubs, mama bears act differently. So, there's a lot of possibilities here. I just don't think, like, when you look at the investigation against Daniel and Malaya, it seems like they crossed their I's and dotted their T's on that one. Wait. I said that backwards. There's the dyslexia kicking in a little bit. But does that make sense at all? A little bit?
Oh, so although I know what you're saying, absolutely, right? I know what you're saying. Regardless, for some reason, Daniel, this thing keeps coming into my head. I remember watching this documentary story about a case. And I remember that they said that they loved having women crime scene detectives. Why? Because their gut will outweigh anything. And I always remember that. And that's how I feel, is that in my heart of hearts at the moment, okay, is that I'm always willing to change my thoughts if there's something something that directs me to there. Now, there's nothing that directs me to an abduction, because they said in the press conference that there's no signs. They basically told you on that press conference that if there was anything, or if there was signs of abduction, we would have told you. That's pretty much how they worded it when they were saying it in that press conference. Okay. So Janie, in her own words, said that didn't happen. Like, I've lived here for 26 years. That didn't happen. Just like the kids didn't go in the woods. Okay, so Janie, the kids didn't go in the woods and the kids weren't abducted. Then obviously, then it goes back to, I believe, the whole.
Yeah, but Janie's not a police officer or detective.
No. But the thing is that still she lives there. She knows how busy the roads are. So if the kids happen to get onto the road, let's just say that they did. So did the first vehicle by chance stop and abduct them, that came by?
Well, who's to say they went to the road? I know that the dog sniffed out that direction, and I think there was a shoe print at some point on the driveway. But
near Janie's trailer, about 10 feet. Yeah. Right.
And so outside of that, there's nothing to say they went to the road per se. But if they did go to the road, and I mean, I thought this was a rural area.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And so I don't know how much traffic would be going around through there, but I would assume
very.
I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, we can look at the Delphi case. I mean, you had Richard Allen, who didn't have any prior history or anything like that, go out there. He had kids. He had a daughter that looked similar to Libby.
Yeah.
And look at the crime that he committed. Drugs can play a heavy role, especially if you're under the influence of something and you have the respondents for violence already, which that guy got arrested for that already. But when it comes to like what you're saying, I'd have to look at the I'd want to see the press conference and see how they worded it, see what the question was that they answered, and see how that question was worded. Go ahead.
Have you listened? Okay, so to ask you, because if you haven't, so you've never listened to the press conference?
I may have. I'm not familiar with which one you're talking about.
And then the second thing is, have you ever listened to the full scanner audio?
I don't believe I did that.
Okay, so you'll find that on Plunder, okay? If you go back to Plunder, that's where you'll find, you might be able to find it somewhere else. Right, Plunder, she was on it right at the start, is the scanner audio as well.
Now, I will say this, though. Remember in the Brian Koberger case, they said that situation was completely targeted. Nobody else had any belief, and that that they didn't, they said it was targeted, and then they slowly started changing things from, what they put out there to ease the mind of the public and what they put in their documents are sometimes two different things.
Right. Now, and I know Canada works differently. They will set you up to watch you burn. Like, seriously. Because that's just a different game that's played over here. But in saying that, I wanted to ask you something. I think about all the things that Wade said about that all three of them should be locked up, type of thing. Basically, that they did something to the kids, that the kids go look for them. These kids are buried somewhere. How Daniel abused them. And now I know, don't get me wrong, okay? But bottom line is, obviously, Cindy and Wade had conversations. So before Tint had recorded them, obviously Wade and Cindy are going to talk about it. Now, I can even tell by the conversations that Darren's told me he had with Cindy. Like, he's basically like, you know what? I'm effing over Malaya. She's a grown up. Basically, you know what? She can deal with her own stuff. Okay. Now, they feel you can. So obviously they talk. Now, again, if Wade feels like they're dead, chances are that Cindy, who has done nothing to come out at all either, is because they believe that the children are dead. And a lot of people like Belinda as well, because Malaya left that day, she knew that the children weren't coming back. And that's why she could just leave. Now, in saying that, but I'm talking about Wade and Cindy in particular, but particularly Wade, since it came out of his mouth. But so what do you think about the fact that they believe, or at least Wade thinks, that they're guilty and that these children are dead? What do you think about that?
I mean, if you go around and ask anybody's family members about things, everybody has skeletons. Everybody has something. I don't want to bring light to this, but like, for instance, because the case that I cover more in depth is the Idaho murders.
Still here. I'll just turn off my camera for 1 second.
Okay, yeah, is the Idaho murders, and in that case, one of the family members, one of the Kaylee's father, he had a family member that he didn't get along with, and was coming out and starting to say things and almost align with some of these people that were accusing him of being involved in his kid's murder when he was in freaking Coeur d'Alene when it happened. And 1,000% proof that you can prove that wasn't the case. And then you have all these pro-burgers that are trying to say that Brian Koberger is innocent by any means, even if they have to throw the family members of the victims under the bus. And so when it comes to those things, you're going to find family members who are going to say some things, gossip and rumors, and those things run wild through families. I mean, I'll listen to my wife and my sister-in-law talk about God knows everything. And I'll tell you this, they're not always accurate about everything that they're saying. And so to me, I don't know, about, why Wade thinks what he thinks.
Well, I mean,
I don't know, I understand why some people question Malaya.
Right.
I would too. I would too. I would, if I was the investigator, I would be solely talking to her, and I would have investigated her. And it sounds like law enforcement did. And the other thing that I would do as a law enforcement officer was I would tell her not to talk to us.
Well, I mean,
it's just being honest. I would say not to do that.
Some people learn a little too late, unfortunately, in some of these cases. And Daniel, I don't care what you say, dude. Been in this for not you, Daniel, the other Daniel Martell, that you're in there. Is that, and Janie is the same thing. But when people come to cases and they have no clue, because they're thrown into a situation regardless. Now, I don't know if Daniel watched True Crime before this or not, but trust me, when you're a creator, a content creator, and you've been doing this for years and stuff like that, we know what the pack of wolves feel like, okay? Nobody, pretty much no high-profile case has been through anything different than, to be honest, what you guys feel like you are going through. Now, for me, I personally don't care what people think. So I'll talk till I'm blue in the face, and I don't care who's trying to take away that from me. If I'm fighting for my son and for awareness, I don't care. But the thing is that kind of like Belinda, now she knows that this is a place that she can talk and come on the lives. Whereas at first, I'm sure it was really scary to her because she didn't know what to expect and stuff like that. Now people get a taste of what it's like. So correct. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to bring awareness to cases as content creators, you know, and I always care about that first and foremost, you know, but like I was going back to Daniel Martell, again, right? It's kind of like we're not new to this. So to us, we see exactly what happens and stuff like that, right? So it's to me like a little fish coming into a big pond of sharks. And this, unfortunately, is the way that the future will be, if not way more. But what's scary is the AI stuff, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, if you're coming to the public for help, just be honest and truthful, right? That will do you so many more favors. And to me, I'm just going to put out this challenge to Daniel and Janie and even Malaya. I would like them on a piece of paper to put to the public the actual timeline on paper for what happened that day, right? And that's all what needed to happen in the first place, was that people just wanted to feel truth was being told. So you could be the most guilty, innocent person ever by your actions, you know, and that's what happens in cases. You will get attacked by the wolves whenever there's inconsistencies in stories. And that has happened here 50-fold.
Yeah, but I mean, the same people doing the attacking probably couldn't keep up their own straight story about things. I mean, what did you do last Tuesday?
What did I do last Tuesday? Yeah. I was working, and then
what'd you wear?
What I wear?
Yeah, when you went to work.
I don't know. Don't ask me that anymore. I'm too old. Yeah, you know, it's like I don't have forgiveness.
No, you know? I know. It's just, you know, that's what I'm trying to say is like sometimes I get when like there's inconsistencies, and I'm covering a case right now, the Timothy D's case, and there's some real inconsistencies there. I have a guy there that says that and me and Steve from True Crime Web. Steve is a former CSI crime scene investigator, forensic crime scene investigator that's helped me out in several of my cases. And in that case there, you have some really suspicious stuff. You have some statements made, like one of the ones that I just found today was this guy, he threatened his friend the day he goes missing. And then at about 8:30, he's like telling him off, like, I'm going to find you and beat your ass. And then at 9:11, his friend, Timothy, uses his debit card for $160. And shortly after that, his buddy, Caleb, the guy that was threatening him, is arrested because they did a gas drive-off the night before. During his first interview, they asked him about, you know, hey, did Timothy take out any money or anything like that? And he's like, no, I don't know. But then when he goes and talks to his sister, he's like, hey, Timothy had $160 on him, the exact same amount that was taken out of Timothy's account. And, you know, he claims he had no idea about it before, and now he knows exactly how much it was. And he claims he wasn't there, didn't know him, didn't see him, hadn't seen him since 4:00. Now that's an inconsistency to know how much money he took out 5 hours after the last time he said he saw him, you know, and then there's more to it. You know, he says that he tells the investigator that Timmy kicked a box and found some IDs and a birth certificate, and that he was going to try to change his name and change his identity and run away, coming up with this lie as far as why Timothy is missing. And then in another phone call with his sister, he's like, hey, remember that ID we found? Well, Timothy found it and took it. You know, when he said that it was Timothy that found it and Timothy got it, you know, completely lying about a whole bunch of things. And it was for a female, you know, it was a female's ID and social security number. Made zero sense. He was coming up with so many different lies. You know, he said he was going to help find him and this, that, and a third. And then the last message he ever sent to him was a threat. He never messaged him again. Kind of an indication of him knowing there's no point in messaging him. Why is it? He already knows where he's at. And so, like, there's a lot there in that case when, you know, we want to talk like some inconsistencies. I can bring him up on that one all day. And that guy there looks guilty as hell. Now, for whatever reason, law enforcement, they don't want to investigate it. Now, me personally, I mean, those that know me will know that I'm not the type that's going to jump in on the conspiracy train and say cops did it. That's not me. But there's been 3 lightning strikes to very important information and evidence in this case. There was cops have documented that they arrested Caleb Nanny at 9 a.m. Timothy D's debit card was used at 9/11, so that's kind of his alibi. It's like, oh, I was in jail when his debit card was used. The problem is, I have a screenshot where Caleb is asking his friend at 10 o'clock, hey, I need money because I'm fixing to go to jail. He hadn't been in jail yet. So law enforcement are covering up for this. I don't know why. You know, when they found Timothy's remains, his tooth was knocked out. When you get the pictures from the coroner, his tooth is in his mouth. And there's not one document that says why. And the only reason somebody would do that is so that the coroner doesn't classify this as a possible homicide or something else of that nature and leave it undetermined. I don't know why they're doing this. The lightning strikes, and Steve from True Crime Web, CSI investigator, professional, former law enforcement as well. He's gone up there and shown him the information, showed him the new evidence, and Missouri don't want to do a damn thing. It's weird. It is weird. I'm actually going to cover all of it tomorrow, guys.
I was going to say,
I'm going to cover it all tomorrow. So please come check it out. It'll be my live tomorrow night. Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to ignore most of the chat there because I can see there's a lot I could say to what I'm seeing, to be honest with you. At the end of the day, well, do you want to talk about the pink blanket now? Or
let's talk about the pink blanket real quick. And then we can go from there. But so the pink blanket was found. I was looking at the documents, and the documents indicate that Jack not Jack. I keep saying Jack.
I've done the same thing.
It's because of Jack Decor and all the Jacks
I
in
know.
the Idaho case, and then there's little Jack and so much more. So it says here that now. I don't know. I'm sure Daniel went and said that he denied it to you guys, but it doesn't seem like he denied it to law enforcement here that the blanket belonged to him.
Yeah.
On the documents, it says he said no.
I think I'd have to go find it again, but I'd have to go back to those documents there. But bottom line is, he already admitted to it himself. He knows.
Right. So let's break that down. So
let's see if it is.
What is he trying to? What's the advantage by saying it doesn't belong to them?
Well, the first I remember about it was that I can't remember if this was out of Darren O'Grady, who's in the chat, Derwin. I can't remember. I remember the first thing that was being said about that, and I think it came out of Darren's mouth, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, if it didn't, regardless, that it was to protect Malaya. For some reason, it was about something to protect Malaya. And I think that had to honestly do with the fact that Daniel had said that basically Malaya, her family members, had planted it against him. Now, so he denied it. But the first thing I remember from the very beginning of this was it was to protect Malaya, because something about lying, I guess, planting. But anyways, whatever. This is when, of course, he's dripping and drooling over Malaya still. And maybe he still is. I don't know. But this is when he didn't want, of course, to basically, obviously, when you're in a relationship, regardless, you're in it because you love the person. She left him at the last moment thing, according to him. But the blanket, he denied it. It's in the papers everywhere. It's not like he didn't deny saying that. But then he said that there was another blanket, like a secondary one. And I'm like, no, dude, there's not. Anyways, so again, then about, what was it, 3 weeks? I don't know, whatever later. Then he said it was Lily's jacket. I'd have to go back to the actual article for that one. But anyways, so then he said it. But then it became about, well, dude, how can your mother right, Janie? Because Janie, you said that you saw your son put that blanket into a bag. Now, the way it's worded in the article is that they put it up on the door. There was a piece missing from it, and Daniel had ripped that piece off, and that
right.
that it
But
was,
I think it's a little bit schematical, don't you think? A little bit of like who put it out there. Was it Daniel? Was it Malaya? It was found in the trash. I mean, somebody put part of it in
well,
the trash, right?
well, that's like I said on my live yesterday. Bottom line is that this, all of a sudden, this blanket that is put into the garbage, right? Like, meaning whether, regardless, the bigger piece. What's the chances? So Daniel says that there was no blanket out there, right?
Right.
Haley says it was out there, just like you could see it, like a sore thumb sticking out, but it was just there. You could just see it. Now, Daniel says him and his uncles and his dad didn't see that blanket in the morning. So again, what's
Did
the
you ever get a
chance
picture of it?
at the blanket?
Yeah. Because the one we saw was just a ribbon, right?
No, I showed you. I gave you the blanket. Yeah,
Let
do
me
you want
double
me
check.
to get my picture and share it with you?
Yeah. Because I remember the one that we had seen. I thought you had said.
No, I had given you the actual blanket as well, but it's okay. You
Okay.
can. I'll share it here. Share
Yeah, because I don't
screen.
think I've seen it yet. I know you sent me a picture or the last time we were here, and then you said I was
You
kind
can
of
put
like
it
that
up.
looks kind of small.
You can go ahead, put it up.
Yeah, let me remove this one.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, yeah. I think I
So
might actually remember this now.
yeah. Okay. So obviously on this blanket, it's called an LOL dolly blanket, and you can see that there's purple and coloring. So Daniel had put this particular other piece that we know of. I don't know about this piece in particular, but the other piece into the garbage. That's the one where Janie says, I saw Daniel put it into the garbage and I told him, don't make it too heavy, blah, 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 blah. Bottom line is that this blanket, there's no mistaking what this blanket looks like. It clearly has a pattern on it. He literally put it into the garbage regardless, because his mom said that she saw him put it in there. And so
Right.
how can you deny, first of all, that this was the blanket?
Well, I mean, if you
Right?
thought you put it in the garbage, why
No,
would
I
you think
mean,
it's the same one? I mean,
no, because the piece was
I
ripped off. He knew it.
right. No, and I understand that, but like, um, and again, what would be the
Because
advantage
he
at this
was,
point?
well, again, misdirect. To me, this is clear, like misdirect
Right.
or plant and blame Malaya's family.
Okay.
Whatever it is. Bottom line is, to me, like kind of like what me and Count were talking about yesterday, right? Obviously, they're going to check for DNA and see if there's any unknown source on there,
Right.
right? And how is it that this blanket or this piece of the blanket that Daniel says was not there was suddenly there? Now, I can't believe anything he says. Regardless, I'm just taking the fact
Can
that
you
this
zoom
blanket
in? Can you
was there.
zoom in like right underneath of it?
Sure. Yeah, underneath. Like this
Yeah.
wasn't not far off the ground, okay? So don't think it was like way up in some tree, because it wasn't.
Yeah,
It was
that's what I was gonna say. This looks like it's fairly close to the ground.
it's clip. Oh, so what you're looking at, to be honest with you, is fairly close to the ground. It's it's not like it's like way up here, like
Yeah.
way up in the tree. It's towards the bottom of the tree.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's high, but is it something that Jack or Lily could have thrown there, themselves? But bottom line that came of this is that how is it that a blanket that supposedly wasn't there ends up there? Next thing you know, all of a sudden the same blanket that ends up that somebody finds, right? Which he's saying, so that it was Haley and Hayden that found the blanket and the boot print, okay, which is further down the pipeline for the boot prints, I should say, because they said couple, or it was kind of worded differently, I think, in the article, to be honest, because they said like two different sizes, but it almost led you to believe that one was an adult and one was a child's, whereas they were talking about size 11 or 10 and 13.
Right. I think one of them ended up being a similar size to what Lily. They found going through the purchases and the purchase history. They ended up finding the boot that matched the size that would have been out there. But yeah, so to me, I mean, it's not impossible for kids to have put that up there, though. And as far as why didn't Daniel see it, I mean, there's a lot of things that people miss. Okay. That you know, there's a saying out there: if it was a snake, it would have bit you, and you know what? At least out here in Texas.
But Daniel, though, what's the chances that the same blanket that is found is the same blanket that's in the garbage from?
But I mean, it belonged to them
from a week later. Hey,
right? But it was separated. It was into two different pieces. So I don't know if somebody went into the trash and grabbed, if they put both pieces into the trash, or if one put one in the trash, or if there was more than two pieces. There's a lot of context that's missing out of this.
Just quickly, did you see what Daniel just said?
No, what did
Daniel,
you say?
Are you referring to the blanket? He said school bus footage shows it was planted. I think he's referring to the blanket.
I think what he's probably saying is that the school bus passed by in the morning and it wasn't there. Now, what time did the school bus pass by? You know, the school bus probably passed by much earlier than 9 o'clock.
7:30 is when the school bus arrives there.
Well, then it just says it wasn't there, and then it's most likely put out there afterwards. And, you know, the kids weren't missing until much later than that.
Well, again, you know, I know with us that we could spin circles all day long on our thoughts about this case.
Right.
For sure. At the end of the day, again.
Daniel thinks that they were planted, and that the Hayden and Haley planted it. And to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't some of Malaya's family, because of the way she's acted, kind of turned against her?
I'm not gonna, Daniel Martell, I'm not gonna confirm or deny that answer.
Well, that's what I have heard. I have heard that from multiple persons, and I've actually could have swore maybe it was you. Somebody sent me a video. I could have swore it was either Hayden or Halen talking about how she's the way she's acting, going to the beach, going doing this and going doing that. If they were so suspicious of her, why are they planting evidence for her? You get what I'm saying? So that doesn't jive with me. So what most likely occurred here is either Daniel missed it when he was out there, which it's dense. Who knows if he's looking in that direction? It's low to the ground.
Well.
And secondly, like, if he's on a moving vehicle compared to if they're walking, you know, you're going to capture more things if you're walking out there, if you're going slower, versus you're on an ATV and you're just kind of grazing around trying to find some things. I know that from experience in law enforcement, going and searching. You know, you can miss a lot of things if you're trying to find something big and you're just kind of scanning around and you're moving quickly.
Well, so my thing is this, Daniel, to Daniel Martell, you know, again, at what point in your guys' timeline, at what point did these children, were they picked up by the family members or friends of the family, or family, friends, sisters, whatever? When were they picked up? At what point does Daniel and Janie and Durwood, what point, at what time frame exact, like around in their timeline?
That's impossible because they have geofenced the area and they have Malaya's phone. So if somebody was going to come pick up the kids, you have to notify them. Hey, Daniel's asleep. Hey, it's ready to go. He's not woken up. You still got time. All right. Yeah, you're good. There'd be some sort of communication between Malaya and whoever, you know, if there was some sort of orchestrated pickup. I mean,
well, that's just it. But that's what they're saying, though, Daniel. They're from.
No, I get it. That's why I'm saying I don't buy it. There's a lot of things that would have to happen that would be easy to prove. Right. Yeah, and that goes for a lot of these things. Like there's certain things that would have to happen for those things to be true or valid. That would be super easy to prove, and it'd be super easy to figure out. If Malaya had somebody pick him up at any point, you know, there would be communication, there would be conversation, there would be some sort of that time frame. Now I know she went to her mom's and she was there for a while doing laundry, and maybe they talked about it there while Daniel was outside. Well, those individuals also took a lie detector test and they passed. And so, and it referenced the disappearance, not just the death. And that's what the documents say as well, when it comes to Malaya's aspect. Now, the questions you ask Malaya and the questions you ask Daniel are going to be completely different than what you would ask Cindy and some of these other folks. You know, their involvement varies and is different. You know, Daniel was very, very open with law enforcement about what his beliefs about Malaya's involvement. You know, they're going to take what he says and then maybe not necessarily say, all right, we're going to, you know, push it through the wall, but we're going to investigate it. At the very least, they're going to look into those things. And if somebody went over there with some sort of pre-notion plan that they were going to pick up the kids at this time, and it was behind the back of Daniel or Janie, and it was Malaya that had to do this, she would have had to have alerted them that it's time to go. It's time to come get them. And their phones would have been on. So then when you do the geofence, you would have been able to pull up their phones in the area, especially if they were from somewhere far away. I believe that if we were to say that it was her parents, you know, her parents lived over an hour away. So, hey, why is your phone connecting to the tower at this time? You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
there's a lot there that can prove it. I mean, it's one thing to say, hey, it makes sense. Okay. Well, it makes sense here without any evidence. But once we put down what evidence the law enforcement already has, what they can do with that evidence, and what that evidence can show, it makes a lot of these possibilities improbable.
That's sorry. 1 second. 1 second.
Oh, you're fine. And so, you know, it's not about just like, because I mean, I could go in here and say, hey, you know what, aliens could have came in and abducted them and this, that, and the third. And
can I quickly now, Janie, in chat you just said that Malaya called 911 at 9:40. No, that's not when she called 911. When she called 911 was at 10:01. What she said was that when she sent a message to Belinda, it was at 9:40 that they were last seen. Not that she called 911, but they were last seen. So, because I know a lot of people had that confused at first and were thinking, you know, using it as, well, that's when she called. But no, that's when, and that's where that 20-minute time window comes from, is that 9:40 to 10:01. So that's what Malaya said in those messages. If you go read it again, you'll see she doesn't say she called. She said that's when they were last seen, like meaning, I guess, or heard, right? That's their 20-minute time window of when they woke up to when they went out and did all that stuff, right?
Right. And for Angie, who's saying, going by my logic, they just vanished out of thin air. If you go look at missing persons in forest area, you'd be surprised how many people go missing.
So what do you feel like we're left with? Okay, so
they probably wandered off and got a lot further than we think. I mean, if these individuals fell asleep multiple times that morning, they're trying to come up with times while they were asleep. You're not going to be able to come up with that. It's probably a lot longer. Probably also minimizing the time that they were asleep to minimize the culpability. It's human nature. Somebody gets into a car accident. How fast were you going? Oh, I was going 50 miles an hour because that's what the speed limit says. You go look at the skid marks and they're going like 65. Them saying they slept for this amount of time, that amount of time. What are the facts? The last time they heard them was probably about 8:30. Last time that mom heard them, or Janie, Daniel's mom heard them, was at what, almost 9 o'clock, and then they didn't call law enforcement until 10. Yeah. I mean, it could be, but it also could have been much closer to 9. It could have been earlier than 9. She don't really know.
She said she dozed off when she
went back
after. So her brother's phone call ended at 8:51. Then she said she went back in the trailer and dozed off. So you can place it somewhere around 9, a little bit after, perhaps, right?
Perhaps, maybe a little bit before. I mean, sometimes people go sleep earlier than
others.
Right,
and 10 minutes feels like an hour. So, and I get that.
So to me, if I'm looking at this, like as an investigator, I'm not looking at the possibilities of this or that. I'm looking at, all right, when was the last time you looked at your phone, Janie? 8:48 or 8:51 when I close it. All right, that's the time. That's the time of the earliest possible time that they could have gone off. And then what's the time that the 911 call came in? And so you have over an hour and 11 minutes. of a possibility there. Probably closer to an hour, but it could have been anywhere between an hour and 11, 40 minutes, whatever. In that amount of time, a lot of people can go a long distance. There was a 2-year-old that vanished, found him 9 miles away in the woods. This is a missing 411 that actually happened. And so, and this was in a national forest. It wasn't, maybe not, I don't know how dense it is compared up there, but I think it was like 9 miles is how far that kid was found. 2 years old, walked off. They found a kid. I think they found him alive too. And so, these kids, just because they haven't wandered off before in the past, they were 4 and 6 years old. They were very young. There's a lot of things they probably hadn't done that they were going to do for the first time. You know what I'm saying?
I still, like, I've looked at, I can't honestly with that one myself. I've tried. I can't. Even Janie doesn't believe that in the timeline that these children could have not been seen in that timeline. It says it right in their own words in there. I can't believe myself, like, not to say that it's impossible. And sorry, Durwood, Darren, everyone wants to pray that these children are alive, right? And again, if you strongly feel that way, then obviously, absolutely. Who am I or anyone else to tell you how to feel about that? I mean, that would be the best case scenario ever, right? It would. It truly would. If Daniel and that believe that something happened, but like, so Darren just said about the fact that he believes that this is an Indigenous thing with CPS. And, but I know that you didn't, unless you've changed your mind.
So it's Bowden Allen, 2 years old, wandered off 7 miles. 7 miles.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so they can't figure out how they found him, because they did helicopter search, 4x4 search, numerous volunteers, and a ranch dog. And they found him. They found him safe. 2 years old, 7 miles away.
I remember that story.
Yep.
I remember that story. Cray, right?
Yeah, it's insane. It is insane.
Yeah.
And so, like, those type of things happen. And in this scenario, I know a lot of people are going to look at like, well, you look at the woods, they're dense. There's trails. Yeah, that's also 2 years old. That's true. I mean, these are two kids that are a lot older than that. And there's a lot of wildlife in the area. And so I think that there's an underestimation here as far as when it goes to the search, how far they could have gone. And the second thing is, when I looked at the documents about the search, they searched only half a kilometer away with thermo and drones. The rest of it was searched by foot in specific areas. It wasn't necessarily like the entire 8 kilometers grid searched. Everybody covered every inch of that area. That's far from the truth from what I read.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Daniel, what this, for me personally, okay. Has Daniel acted strange? Has Malaya acted strange? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree.
Thing about Janie was just more that her timeline didn't mesh with what was coming out of Daniel's mouth or Malaya's. That's where Janie stood on that, is that when she decided to speak up was quite a couple months into everyone watching all these inconsistencies and these weird actions go on. Right. The bottom line is, if they're in the woods, if they, and got overlooked somewhere, if they made it further, if they're hidden somewhere, if there's family involvement, all I really just care about the most. Well, first of all, I'm a truthologist, Daniel. I like the truth. I just like to be right. Of course, because the bottom line is, these aren't my kids. These are their kids, their family's kids, not mine. Right. So when you're wanting the help of the public and you want people to speak about the case and you want to talk to people, right, then all you ever want is, when you're speaking to someone, at least for me personally, I just want the most genuineness heart speaking to me, Right.
But when it comes to them, though, I mean, you would want, this is what you would want. You would want the parents to be cooperative. You would want the parents to not lawyer up. You would want the parents to talk at every moment that they've been asked to talk. You would want the parents to hand over their bank documents and financial records.
I know
you would want the parents to hand over their cell phones and their geolocations and their text messages and access to all those things and above with password information. And then you're going to also want the parents to take a lie detector test.
Right.
The parents that do all of the above, that are that cooperative, either if there's something that's involved, if they're somewhat involved in it, they usually get caught pretty easy because they've cooperated so much and opened up all of their information to be caught. Look, think about the Haro case.
You're not wrong.
And then for those that also do that and then nothing happens, there's no arrest, there's no nothing. In fact, you have law enforcement saying they believe that they did not commit a criminal offense and that there is no ground for a criminal incident. No. And that the whole purpose of this thing was to eliminate them as suspects. Watch this. Check this out. Let me show you something real quick.
Oh.
Let me show you this. Now, this is another little boy that went missing. And he was 3 years old, got found, but he was out in the woods in Montana for an extended period of time, 2 days. But let me show you this. This is Moscow's press release. At this time, the investigation, the detectives did not believe the following are involved in the crime. The 2 surviving roommates, the male at the grub truck surveillance video, private party driver who took Kaylee and Madison home on November 13th, and et cetera. These are people that were not involved, and law enforcement cleared them. Now, they don't use the term clear. They don't use the term eliminate a suspect. They use the term, we do not believe that these people are involved.
At this time.
Now, if we go over here, and they weren't, and they don't say at this time. They say, we do not believe that the following people are involved in this crime. And I'm going to go through here too, because I don't know if this says at this time. It literally
said at this time. That sentence you just showed, they said at this time.
Oh, at this time. Yeah. Okay. So at this time. All right. You're right.
And that's kind of the wording that they used, was that at this time, there's no.
Yeah. And at this point in the investigation, Jack and Lily's disappearance is not believed to be criminal in nature, not reasonable belief that there was a criminal offense has occurred. And polygraph examinations were conducted with the intention of ruling out that possibility. So the entire thing that this was done was with the intention of ruling out the criminal nature aspect and in a criminal offense for the parents as they were, let's see, where is this? In an effort to eliminate her as a suspect causing the children's disappearance and possible murder. So this here is more than what they said in Moscow. Would you agree or disagree?
Than in the Moscow?
They have said more here in this document than what they said about these folks here as far as their involvement.
Honestly, I didn't read the
Okay, so this one says here, at this time in the investigation, detectives do not believe that the following are not involved in the crime. Here it says, in effort to eliminate her as suspect causing their children's disappearance and possible murder. This was the whole purpose of this was. And then it goes on to say, at this point, the disappearance is not believed to be criminal in nature and no reasonable grounds to believe a criminal offense has occurred. The polygraph examinations were conducted with the intent of ruling that as a possibility. Which one do you think is more detailed?
Well, obviously this one has more wording to it.
Right, but I think it also indicates more. I would believe more that these people are more cleared than what they say here. Would you disagree or agree? Like if you were looking at both of these and you would say, all right, which one tells you that the persons that they're investigating that they believe are less involved?
Yeah. Are less involved?
Yeah. Like if I look at this, I would say, all right, detectives. I would say that detectives are more based on the wording that they have here, and based on the wording that they have here, are at this point. I would say that the detectives are more affirmative that Daniel and Malaya did not commit these crimes than what these detectives believe the possibility of these individuals committing the crimes at 1122 King Road at that time.
Yeah. And sorry, Durwood, spare me on that stuff. All right. Honestly, you want to talk about somebody about stuff like that. That's disgusting. That's disgusting. Saying stuff like that.
I didn't see what they said, but we don't have to repeat it.
We don't have to repeat it.
Yeah. And so,
yeah.
And so to me, to me, it seems like RCMP is more confident that Malaya and Daniel are not involved in this crime or any criminal offense. Like maybe perhaps they were neglectful and the kids got out. I mean, that's something completely different, right? But a criminal offense, I'm assuming here, like, this is Canada, so things are different there. Probably like a premeditated type of offense, or well, it says criminal. So, I mean, negligent stuff would also probably go into that. But I would say here that RCMP is more confident in their decision of Malaya and Daniel than what law enforcement was with the two surviving roommates, the hoodie guy, the private driver, the Jack Decor, and Hunter Johnson, who was called for 911.
Right. I see that differently myself personally. I see.
Why do you say that? What makes you believe, based off of this one statement, that they're more confident than the others?
Within Daniel and Malaya on that side?
Yeah.
Honestly, it's because to me, I think it was pretty evident from the start with this case that that the surviving roommates that they weren't part of it. They didn't have no involvement. So to me, this is like a different scenario going on here.
But if we talk about the guy, Jack Decor, the one that they called in the early morning hours, he was with them that night. He was at the bar at the corner club. He's an ex-boyfriend. He lives down the street.
Yeah, I never got into that whole mess with them.
Yeah, with Kaylee's boyfriend, Jack Decor, who is this guy right here, the male that Kaylee and Madison called numerous times during the early morning hours. That was Jack Decor. Now, Jack Decor got several phone calls between 2 and 3 a.m. He didn't answer any of those calls. He lived down the street. He was an ex-boyfriend. Kaylee had been seeing other men. Kaylee was moving to Texas. They shared a dog. She was taking the dog that they shared. And like I said, he was aware of also the guys that she was dating, and they weren't, necessarily on bad terms, but they weren't together anymore. And so yet he was cleared on this scenario here. And so you have a lot of things there, right? You had the mayor in this case come out and say right away this was a crime of passion, probably because of the information that I just said. Right. You had somebody kill 4 people with a knife. It's usually very intimate, very personal. And so, they suspected him, but yet they cleared him eventually.
Yeah, but they didn't run around telling 50 different inconsistencies.
They didn't say anything. Jack Decor didn't come out and say a thing.
Now, right, because he was smart.
And so do you think it would have been better if Daniel or Malaya, well, Malaya's not saying anything, but if Daniel didn't say anything to anybody, if he would have kept his mouth shut, would you have had the same opinion based on the information that's been brought out?
No. If he would have kept his mouth shut from the start, instead of looking like a fool, bouncing in and out of chats with different inconsistencies through and through for 4 months. No, if he would have not said anything, obviously, right? I don't care. Like I said, if people in your chat want to attack me, go right ahead.
No, please don't. I'm not looking at the chat.
Let's keep it civil, my guys. Chat as well, right? Please be respectful. We all have our opinions and we all have our own thoughts on this case. But so bottom line is with this all, right? Obviously, Jack and Lily, first and foremost, the victims, first and foremost. Honestly, Daniel, I had another brain fart. What did you just say to me?
I said we were on the topic of Daniel, if he stayed quiet.
Oh, right. Thank you. Sorry. So, yeah. You know what? If Daniel would have stayed quiet and we had not seen, okay, and I want to make this again very clear, okay, I only point out inconsistencies. Absolutely. Right. I have never accused Daniel or Malaya of actually, without saying allegedly, that this is my opinion. Okay, so let's get that straight there. Because again, we cannot say that. I learned that lesson from Delphi for ever accusing someone. That was my lesson learned, like a lot of people.
Yeah, okay, I hear you. Me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I remember Plunder saying the same thing. But anyways, so bottom line here is, doesn't matter what you think. All I'm here to do is that if people are talking, if family members are talking, and it's their words, and their words aren't being consistent with what they've said before or to the timeline, then I'm going to point that out. And that's the bottom line of it, because it's about finding answers for Jack and Lily, not about you trying to trash me or something like that or backtalk me. It's about Jack and Lily first and foremost. And I will defend myself all day long that when it comes to cases that I follow, it's always about the victim first. Whatever happens, whatever charges do get laid or don't get laid in this case, it will play out. I can guarantee you, though, Daniel, that along the line, that more of this information will be uncovered, meaning be released.
Well, I hope so. I mean, more information is there, but I'm also in the sense of not creating any more victims. And accusing the way some people have, like they've come out saying that their bodies were found, or that's all these other things. That's creating more victims. Especially if they didn't do anything. Now, I don't know for a fact. I'm not going to go up to meet my maker and God tells me, hey, you coming in if you lie to me and you say that, you think it's him or not, or whatever the case may be. Yeah. I'm not going to go up there and say, oh, I'm going to put my life on the line. I'm going to get with, into those pearly gates and put Daniel there. That's not what it is. Right. Yeah. To me, like I said, I follow what the investigation is, and I follow what the investigators do and know, and what they put out there is in documents. Inconsistencies, 100%. Those things can be, they can turn on you. Now, if somebody doesn't come out and talk, like you were mentioning, like if Daniel stayed quiet, I think if Daniel stayed quiet, he's in a situation where he's damned if he does, damned if he don't, because there's no way he can retain everything. I mean, I could ask you a bunch of questions about this case, and I'm sure we're going to get some things wrong. Yeah. I know I do. There's times where, somebody will ask me things about the Brian Koberger case, and I know more than I would say, some of the victims' family members who don't want to know anything. There are some family members like the Chapins who try to stay away from the case, stay away from the information. They're glad with the outcome. He pled guilty. They don't have to go to trial. They weren't going to go to the trial. They didn't go to the sentencing. And so, people act differently. You know what I mean?
You know what I would like to see? I would like to see Daniel, Janie, Derwood as well, Malaya and her side of the family. What I would like to see is excluding Belinda Gray, I would actually like to see advocacy. For instead of making it about talking about all these inconsistencies, I would love to be talking, because I am getting very bored of the inconsistencies and talking about it, to be honest. I would love to sit there and say, you know what? Hey, you know what? Janie, Derwood, Daniel, they're all putting up posters. They're trying to organize searches, anything. Instead of it being about like the interview, right, of Janie's interview, that was only about dispelling rumors. But what I would really like to see most is that the family members from both sides, from all sides, are
but the rumors can be detrimental, right? But rumors can be detrimental. In fact, even in the Idaho case, law enforcement were trying to get rid of some of them because we had some crazy people trying to say that there was this weird psychic, put that in quotations, psychic lady saying that Jack Decor was in some love affair with some professor and he got her to take out the kids and a bunch of other things. She ended up getting sued, like hardcore, sued from that professor. And I thought I think it's funny because a lot of those kids
that TikToker.
Yeah.
I remember that. She was hard. She was relentless on that teacher.
She was, and the teacher's like, stop it.
Doubled down.
She
doubled down.
And the crazy thing is, like, what a lot of people don't know, like these folks that think they're going to talk out there and put all this crap and stuff, is like in that case there, a lot of those kids were trying to be lawyers. The Sigma Chi kids, they're all trying to be lawyers and stuff. And so they're about to get the living crap suit out of them. I'm all for it, for those that create more victims, to get their crap suit out of them, because it is like the stuff that those kids from Sigma Chi had to go through, and the victims, the surviving victims, it's insane.
Summer Wells case, it was the same thing. So again, I learned my lesson in Delphi is that you have to talk in speculation because we are allowed to have our opinions.
100%.
All of us, right? But
yes, ma'am.
At the end of the day, like for instance, that one that you're talking about, the teacher for the Idaho, hey, that chick, she literally just kept accusing her having something to do with it. Not only that, then she doubled down on it. So instead of, just saying, you know what, I'm so sorry, retracting or something like that, no, she just doubled down on it. That's a whole different ball of wax. Because, and that happened in Summer Wells' case too. And that's why I actually ended up not following Summer Wells, because Summer Wells got the minute they even showed Don Wells on TV. I mean, the creators instantly were calling him a murderer on day one, and something to do with Candace and stuff like that, right? No information had really come out, and they were just calling and calling and calling. You want to call that defamation? Absolutely. Slander to somebody? Absolutely.
To me, it comes off of the coattails of other success, right? So there was a guy one time who had actually committed a crime, then did an interview, and they found the body during the interview, and he sits down, he's like, whoa, oh my God. And then you'll see in the comment section of everybody that gets interviewed on anything, oh, this looks like that guy. This looks like that guy talking. Like they all want to solve it like that same thing, right in the coattails of that. There's so much of that, where Gabby Petito, a lot of true crimers that have come out and they've helped, people were actually able to help find her and stuff. And they've taken those coattails and used that as a reason to blame and threaten or harass other people and say, oh, well, it worked in the Gabby Petito case, so it's going to work here if I just start blaming people or yelling people or shouting outside of somebody's house like they were doing out of Brian Laundrie's house. But not every situation is the same. You
know what? When you don't deceive though people and you want to come on again, for people that aren't in true crime, or if this is your first time following true crime, trust me, there's a lot to learn and a lot that happens. A lot of people don't understand, but to me, this is old news, what goes on here. And in a lot of ways, it's very sad. But when people come on for the true purpose of wanting to fight for their loved ones, they're missing and they're murdered and stuff like that, the true crime community, and I just did that interview with CBC on this, about the importance of what true crime community can do for families and their victims. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people that come into it, like I said, don't even have a scope of what happens here, right? Doesn't matter. You could be the most innocent person ever and you will be attacked. It doesn't matter. When you're talking about the World Wide Web and all the different people out there, right? You have your good with your bad, and stuff like that, regardless. But if you already know that, because when I first came into true crime, I don't know about you, Danielle, first thing I realized what they presented themselves to be on a platform were backstabbing people. And honestly, and that was one of the first things I learned. So that's really why, first of all, honestly, I mostly stick to myself. I've gained some friends along the way that have come up on the live and done stuff, right? Obviously. Yeah. But in saying that, I just grew a hard shell when it came to the true crime and people, spewing stuff or whatever. I just come here myself. At the end of the day, I just come here to do something that is for the good, which is to, of course, first and foremost, promote cases for the victims, first and foremost. And again, if you're telling the truth is easy to tell.
Yeah, 100%. Kent says, DT, she wasn't going to Texas. Did you watch the video, the one that she gave the interrogation? The roommate said she was changed her mind and wasn't going to Texas. I'm friends with Kaylee's family. I'm close with Steve and Christy.
Yeah. You've had Steve on your show.
I've had Steve on the show. I texted him. We were just talking about football not too long ago. In fact, something's recently come up where Ann Taylor's a little bit upset about Steve's involvement in getting a hold of the DoorDasher because the DoorDasher went missing. She got evicted. She was having some tough times. Yeah. And he had asked around for somebody to get in touch with the DoorDasher, and I'm not going to mention any names, but somebody did. and Taylor's a little bit pissed off about that. And so I'm not on Ann Taylor's happy list. I don't give a shit. Yeah. I'm actually really close with Steve and Christy, and that's not true. She was going to move. She was wanting to maybe perhaps work things out with Jack but she had already have everything in line: her job, her apartment, her roommate situation. Everything was done already in Texas. And so she may have been getting cold feet. That's normal and that's natural. She probably was telling her friends about those things. And from the interview, it said that she was thinking about not going, not necessarily that she wasn't going to go. And a lot of that had to do with Jack. She had a situation with a guy that she went out with, and the guy called her a female dog and said, "Make me some quesadillas."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she's like, "Screw that," and left. And she ended up calling Kaylee, calling her mom and telling her what happened and how Jack never disrespected her that way, and that she was thinking about, to Christy, she was on the she had the impression that Kaylee was going to possibly get back with Jack. And so, I mean, there's that possibility that maybe she wasn't going to go, but at the point when they passed, she had everything in plan there. And even if she had made that statement to Bethany, as law enforcement, you got to take that with a grain of salt, right? You also got to look at everybody as a suspect at first, which is like in this case, I believe that they did. I mean, they didn't take it easy on Daniel. They interrogated him. They interrogated him for hours. They took all his stuff, his passwords, everything. I mean, he gave it up. He volunteered these things, but they weren't like, "Oh, no, don't show us this. Don't give us this. Speak to a lawyer first." No, they gladly took that stuff from him and went through it with a fine-tooth comb. And so kind of the same thing with Jack DeCore. He offered his DNA, he offered his phone, his locations, his bank statements, pretty on par with a bunch of these guys that ended up being like involved in this crime either.
At the end of the day, our RCMP is going to solve this. RCMP is going to solve this.
I hope so.
And that's the day I'll wait for. Because what I want out of this, and I think someone said something about standing behind virtue or something like that. Bottom line is, again, everything I do personally, and I know you too, Daniel, the same way. Everything you do is genuine, organic, and from your heart and stuff like that. And I know that about you, and that's why I think you're such a great person. That's why I
appreciate that. Thank you.
That. Yeah, you guys, your group, with Jaime and Big Blue and stuff like that. You guys are just a really great group of people, and I love that in people. But anyways, bottom line is that RCMP to me are going to solve this case. I'm just for me personally, like I don't want anyone that ever has a family member that is of the missing and the murdered, and you don't know where they are, and you have that hole in your heart every single day. Okay, like I said, is this a career for me? No. Why do I do it? Because honestly, I've been, like I said, customer service my entire life, right? I love being able to do things. Did I think I'd be in true crime? No. Is it where I wanted to be? No. What I do love is the fact that we can impact people and we can impact families, and like kind of what you did, right? Like by having your guests on as well, you give people a platform, a place to have a voice. Not everyone wants to feel comfortable going to the news and talking like that, but there's a community regardless. And my channel has a community. Your channel has your community and stuff like that. And it's what we can do to give people a space, right? As well, like the family, like Belinda, right? This is kind of her home is the channel, and she knows that she can talk where she didn't feel necessarily comfortable. So that's what I love about all this, is that we truly can impact people and watch someone like Kent start off as, and I know that you've talked to him behind the scenes, but he's a great person. He's just a well-rounded individual. He might think differently than I do, but he's a great person, and he's done a lot for Jack and Lily's case. And that's the beautiful part that I like the most out of it all. But the awareness and answers for the victims. To me, it's beyond repair when something of a disappearance or a murder has happened and you don't know if these people are alive or dead, and there's no answers. I would never wish that on anyone.
No, I agree. It's a horrible thing to go through. The anxiety, the fear.
Oh,
I mean, for those that have ever gone to a store and turned around and your kid was missing for just a few moments and then you find them.
Yeah.
Just imagine that over and over again.
Yeah.
Every day, hours upon hours, every night, thinking you hear something, thinking you don't hear things.
Yeah.
Well, Well, Sonny, anyway. It was a pleasure having you on.
I love you, buddy. I think you're great. I love you.
So, I love you too, there, Sonny.
You tell your wife, you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, she does. Yeah. What do you have going on next? For everybody that's
honestly,
like, when's your next show?
I don't know. I'm just going to be outright honest. I'm just exhausted. I am tired. I'm burnt out. So it's kind of like I got a lot of stuff going on in my real life, and nothing detrimental about my twin sisters moving, right? And just in general, just I need to absorb, like take a breather and just absorb these information, go over documents, go over things again and stuff like that. But I need a little bit. I'm just exhausted inside. Yeah, I'm tired. And so, but anyways, at the end of the day, what I can say is this: these documents aren't going to solve any riddle to anything for the answers for what happened to Jack and Lily. They're just not.
No, they're not.
No. And so at the end of the day, all I pray for is, again, that Jack and Lily get answers. What I plan on doing again, Daniel, is joining up with Sebastian Rogers as well, for Seth Rogers. That was a case that I covered. Did you ever cover Sebastian?
No.
Okay.
I know very little about that case.
No problem. But I want to get talking about his case again. And I know people want to talk about Dylan Eller. And I know that you're, again, working on Timothy Dees here. Yeah. So don't forget, you guys, Daniel, I know you're going to see this anyway, but, Daniel's going to be doing a show tomorrow night on Timothy Dees. So catch you then, right, Daniel?
Yeah. And if you want to see somebody that I suspect committed a crime, right? And why? You'll find it tomorrow. I like to present my cases in a certain way, especially if I think that somebody's done something. Like if you haven't checked out my content on the Brian Koberger case, I was spot on everything in that case, down to him listening to Britney Spears in his damn headphones. I'm not gonna lie, I scared myself when I predicted that one.
Sometimes.
It was more of a joke because I was like, for all I know, he's listening to Britney Spears in those headphones, and then sure enough, Dateline comes out. But outside of that, I predicted everything from the fact that he had a dispatch capabilities on his phone, that he was listening to dispatch. I predicted that before that came out based on his actions and his behaviors and the way he moved. To when he some of the things that he was doing in his school, some of the accusations against him. I mean, Psychic Daniel became a thing because of the stuff that I was able to predict in that case. Not necessarily because of the fact that I'm psychic. I don't believe in that. But it was because of the fact that I was able to deduce information based off of the evidence that was there, based on his actions, based on what he was doing before and after the crime. Like, for instance, he was disciplined enough never to go back to the crime scene after the crime scene was discovered. But at 9:00 that morning, he went. Now, he was studied and he knew and he was informed about a perimeter that would have been set up. And so in my mind, for him to have gone back, he must have not only have known that the crime scene hadn't been found because of it not being in the news, but he must have known that the crime scene must not have been found by law enforcement to have the confidence to go back and not get captured on a perimeter.
Yeah.
Because he would have known that a perimeter would have been set based off of his studies. And, the fact that he never went back after that time as well, once the bodies were discovered, he never went back to Moscow, interestingly enough. So he had enough discipline to stay away. So when I started to deduce it, I was like, you know what? I looked into it. Boom. Found out that Broadcastify at the time was broadcasting the Whitcomb 911, which was the 911 response team for both Pullman and Moscow. And I found out that you could listen to that on your phone. And then, Dylan sees him. He takes off at a high rate of speed out of there. Curiosity killed the cat. That's why he turns his phone on, because he knows that he's been seen. He knows that they're going to be listening. And at any point when he left, like, he could have been, it would have been stupid of him to search Idaho murders before bodies would have been found. So he couldn't do that. It wasn't on the news. And had he left his house to go and look at the crime scene at 9:00 in the morning, that scene could have been found at any point. That scene could have been found when he left. And just because it's not on the news doesn't mean that the scene hasn't been found. It just means that the news hasn't made it out there. And so he had a lot of confidence to go back out there. So I predicted that he had either a dispatch device, a radio, or more likely, he had Broadcastify on his phone, which is why he turned his phone on in the morning. And that was my prediction from a long time ago.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that was one of the first things that came out. I talked about his Tapatalk. You know,
the Tapatalk. Yeah.
He had nothing in his life was ever original. Everything was copied. And I saw the similarities between what he was saying and what Patrick Bateman said in the movie American Psycho. Come to find out, some images get released. He has the headphones, very similar to Patrick Bateman in the movie American Psycho. So I started making the connections there.
Yeah.
I started indicating that I think that he was following me, liked him. Sure enough, the Barnharts from Cellbrite indicated that on his cell phone, he had pictures, screenshots of the movie American Psycho, where he cosplayed in similar clothing or lack thereof clothing, topless pictures, similar flexes that were in the movie. And that he also told another inmate that was one of his favorite movies. And so that was another thing that I had predicted with a high percentage of accuracy. And so I'm not psychic. I look at the evidence and I look at the tactics. I look at what people need to do. And so
I got my crystal ball.
There we go. I got a crystal ball. But that's kind of the sense and way I deduce information and been able to generate it there. So tomorrow I'm going to be talking about Timothy Dees and Caleb Nanny. And when I put together why I think he's guilty, you guys are going to wonder why hasn't law enforcement questioned this guy more than what they have, and why they believe his bull crap. I mean, the first thing that he says is, I told Timmy to come with me, that nothing was going to happen to him. Nobody was going to harm him. And he ends up dead. Like, why are you even why is it like, have you ever invited a friend to your house and had to tell them that they weren't going to get harmed?
Yeah.
You have? You've told your friends that are coming over that beware, you might get harmed, or you're not going to get harmed?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well,
oh wait. It's too bad. Next time I want to bring something up, but I forgot about it. But anyways,
no big deal.
Right. Can we say that this live was sponsored by Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC? Daniel Martell knows exactly what I mean. He mentioned it in chat earlier. KFC.
What's the significance of KFC? The
significance of that is one time when he was in my channel, he told me to go give birth to a bucket of KFC. So I know, right? Okay. So anyways, I ended up doing a video about KFC. So when I seen Daniel a minute ago, he said KFC in the chat.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like he has a top dog joke for his, Anyway,
oh, geez. So
that's what I was saying. This is sponsored by KFC, and go have yourself a bucket today and have some birthing sauce. Anyways, that's just a joke.
Well, that's
anyways,
funny.
Thanks, Daniel, and thanks for having us. And prayers to everyone for Jack and Lily, and answers to come, and Belinda and everybody.
Yes, ma'am. 100%. Thank you, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Much. Go check out It's a Crime and Shame if you're watching this on the Drunk Turkey Show. If you're watching this on It's a Crime and Shame and you have, you like my thoughts and theories, check out the T Show or Drunk Turkey Show. Without further ado, guys, we're out of here. You guys have a great night. Peace.
Peace.